You're not rich. I know that hurts. But let's get it out of the way right now because it's the foundation of everything we're about to discuss. You're not rich. You're thinking about which canned goods have the longest shelf life. You're wondering if that water filter you bought on Amazon actually works. You've got maybe 3 days of food in your pantry, and you call that being prepared. Meanwhile, somewhere in the hills of New Zealand, a man who made his fortune selling you targeted advertisements is putting the finishing touches on a facility that makes NORAD look like a garden shed. You think you're playing the same game? You're not even in the same sport. While you're Googling how to start a fire without matches, they're consulting with former DARPA engineers about the optimal thickness of blast-rated concrete. While you're stocking rice and beans in your basement, they're calculating atmospheric drift patterns to ensure that when the Northern Hemisphere turns itself into a radioactive parking lot, their organic kale farm stays pristine. This is not prepping. This is not survivalism. This is something else entirely. This is the construction of a breakaway civilization, a completely separate society, designed from the ground up, with its own power, its own food, its own water, its own medical facilities, and most importantly, its own rules. A world where the currency is access, where the only passport that matters is the one with your name already on the guest list. And here's the delicious irony that keeps me up at night. They can buy the most advanced hardware on the planet. They can hire the smartest engineers. They can build fortresses that would make medieval kings weep with jealousy. But there's one thing their money cannot solve. The oldest problem in human history: loyalty. Because when the world burns and the dollar becomes toilet paper, what exactly is stopping the guy with the gun from taking everything? What's stopping the head of security from deciding that maybe, just maybe, he'd rather be the king than the bodyguard? That's the worm in the apple. That's the crack in the foundation of every single billion-dollar bunker ever conceived. But we'll get to that. First, let's look at their blueprint. Let's understand exactly what you're up against. Because knowledge is power, and in the wasteland, power is the only thing that keeps you breathing. The survival maxim. Rule 0 of the new aristocracy. Those who control the geography control the future. And the future isn't being decided by votes anymore. It's being decided by coordinates.
Part 1. Where the wind doesn't blow. The science of strategic geography. Here's a question for you. Why New Zealand? No, seriously. Why has every tech billionaire with a doom complex suddenly become obsessed with a pair of islands at the bottom of the world? Is it the scenery? The sheep? The excellent film incentives? It's none of those things. It's the wind. You see, you probably think nuclear fallout is just this thing that spreads everywhere equally, like bad cologne at a middle school dance. It doesn't. Fallout follows rules, atmospheric rules, and those rules are written by something called global wind patterns. Here's the science, simplified for the end times. The Earth's atmosphere is divided into circulation cells. In the Northern Hemisphere, you've got the Hadley cell, the Ferrel cell, and the polar cell. These cells move air in predictable patterns. And here's what matters. The air in the Northern Hemisphere largely stays in the Northern Hemisphere. When a nuclear weapon detonates, it throws radioactive particles into the upper atmosphere. Those particles then ride the prevailing winds. In the north, that means they circulate around the north. They drift east. They settle. They poison the water, the soil, the food supply. But the Southern Hemisphere has its own circulation system. There's a boundary at the equator called the Intertropical Convergence Zone, and it acts like an atmospheric wall. Not perfect, but effective enough that if every major city in the Northern Hemisphere became a glass crater, the radiation impact on the deep south would be fractional. New Zealand sits at approximately 41 degrees south latitude. Patagonia, the southern tip of South America, sits around 50 degrees south. Both are in that sweet spot, below the equatorial mixing zone, surrounded by the cleansing expanse of the Southern Ocean, and about as far from any likely nuclear target as you can get, while still having an actual economy. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is meteorology. The billionaires aren't guessing. They're hiring climatologists. But location is just the first checkbox. The second thing on the billionaire checklist is water. Not bottled water. Not water tanks. I'm talking about aquifers. Underground rivers that have been filtering through rock for thousands of years, completely independent of surface contamination. New Zealand sits on top of some of the most pristine aquifer systems on the planet. Patagonia has the Northern Patagonian ice field, the largest temperate ice mass in the Southern Hemisphere, feeding glacier melt rivers that won't run dry for centuries. You want freshwater independence? You drill down. You tap into geology. You make friends with the Earth itself. Then there's energy. and not the kind you pay a monthly bill for. Both regions sit on the Pacific Ring of Fire. That means geothermal activity. That means underground heat that you can tap into for electricity, heating, and industrial processes without ever needing to ship in a single gallon of fuel. Iceland has been doing this for decades. They heat their entire capital city with geothermal energy. The billionaires looked at that and said, yes, but can we do it without the Nordic winters? Hence, New Zealand. Mild climate, geothermal energy, deep aquifers, Southern Hemisphere wind protection. It's not a vacation destination, it's a calculated survival optimization. But wait, there's more to consider. Sea level rise, mega tsunamis, the kind of biblical flooding that turns coastal cities into reef systems. The solution? Elevation calculation. Too low, and you're underwater when Greenland finally gives up the ghost. Too high, and you can't grow food. The atmosphere gets thinner. The UV radiation gets harsher. The growing season gets shorter. The sweet spot is between 500 and 1,500 feet above current sea level. High enough to survive a 200-foot sea level rise with margin to spare. High enough to avoid the worst coastal storm surge scenarios, but low enough to maintain viable agricultural land with normal atmospheric pressure and UV exposure. This is not guesswork, this is engineering. And while you're arguing about which politician is going to save you, they've already done the math. They've picked their spots, they've bought the land, and in some cases, they've literally changed citizenship laws to make sure they can get there when everything falls apart. You think borders will matter when the missiles fly? They won't. But the paperwork you file today determines whether you're welcomed as a citizen or turned away as a refugee. The billionaires filed their paperwork years ago. Have you? Part 2. Bunkers aren't basements. Industrial fortress engineering. Alright, so you've got your location. You've got your aquifer and your geothermal tap and your perfect elevation on the correct side of the atmospheric divide. Now what? Now you build. And not like you build. Not with a contractor and a permit and hopes that the inspector doesn't notice the unpermitted bathroom. You build like you're expecting the wrath of God and you want to file a complaint. Let's start with air, because that's what's going to kill you first, not the blast. Most people won't be anywhere near the blast. What gets you is the aftermath, the fallout, the chemical weapons, the biological agents, the smoke from a million fires. Your standard gas mask, the kind you might buy at an army surplus store, is designed for short-term exposure. It's a filter. It works by trapping particles as you breathe through it, and it works fine right up until the filter gets saturated. Then you're just breathing through contaminated material with extra steps. The billionaire approach is different. It's called positive pressure, or overpressure. Here's how it works. Instead of filtering air as you breathe it in, you create a sealed environment where the internal air pressure is higher than the external air pressure. This means that air is constantly trying to escape from your facility, not enter it. Any cracks, any gaps, any imperfections, they all push air out, not in. You combine this with industrial-grade HEPA filtration, and I mean military specification, not what you bought for your allergies, and activated carbon scrubbing systems that remove chemical and biological agents. The air that enters your facility goes through multiple stages of purification before it ever reaches your lungs. Some of these systems are rated for CBRN environments: chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear. They're designed to keep you breathing clean air even if the outside atmosphere is quite literally poison. This is not a gas mask. This is an environmental control system. The same technology they use in biological weapons labs, just scaled up to cover an entire compound. And it costs more than your house. But air isn't the only invisible threat. Let's talk about EMP, electromagnetic pulse. You've seen this in the movies. A bomb goes off and suddenly nothing electronic works anymore. Cars stop, phones die, the grid goes dark. Very dramatic, very convenient for the plot. The reality is more nuanced, but the threat is real. A high-altitude nuclear detonation, say 300 miles up, doesn't kill people directly. Instead, it releases a massive burst of electromagnetic energy that cascades down through the atmosphere. When it hits the ground, it induces current in anything conductive. Power lines, computer chips, anything with a circuit board. The result, widespread electronic failure. The grid doesn't just go down for a few hours. Transformers blow, control systems fry. Modern society runs on electronics, and suddenly none of them work. Your bunker has the best air filtration money can buy? Great. Does your air filtration system have a computer controlling it? Then it's dead. Does your water pump run on electricity? Dead. Does your communication system use anything invented after 1950? Dead. The solution is called a Faraday cage. A Faraday cage is an enclosure made of conductive material that distributes electromagnetic energy around the outside while keeping the inside protected. It's the same principle that keeps you safe in a car when lightning strikes. The electricity flows around the metal shell, not through you. Building a Faraday cage for your laptop is easy. Building one for an entire bunker is expensive but doable. You're essentially wrapping your facility in a mesh of conductive material, copper, steel, aluminum that intercepts the electromagnetic pulse before it can reach your electronics. But here's where the billionaires go further. Analog backups, because even Faraday cages aren't perfect, and electronics are fragile. And if your entire survival depends on a computer, you've made a critical error. So they install manual systems, mechanical water pumps, hand crank generators, analog gauges, physical switches, systems that work with pure physics, no software required. When your digitally controlled ventilation fails, you want a backup that works with a lever and some muscle. When your electronic security system dies, you want a mechanical lock that doesn't care about the electromagnetic spectrum. Redundancy is the game. Assume everything digital will fail, then build a backup that runs on gears. Now, all of this is meaningless if someone can find you. You've got your impenetrable fortress, your clean air, your protected electronics. Congratulations, you're now a target. Every drone, every satellite, every desperate mob is looking for exactly what you've built. Resources, shelter, a chance. The solution is obscurity. You've heard of camouflage for people. This is camouflage for buildings. It's called concealment architecture, and it's an art form. The goal is to make your multi-million-dollar facility look like absolutely nothing. A hill, an abandoned barn, a natural rock formation, anything that doesn't say there is something valuable here. The main enemy is thermal imaging. Satellites and drones can see heat signatures. A building that's heated, that has people living in it, that has machinery running. It glows like a beacon on thermal cameras. The counter strategy involves multiple layers. Underground construction to use the earth as a thermal buffer. Heat dispersal systems that spread your thermal signature across a wider area, making it look like ambient ground heat rather than a concentrated source. Strategic landscaping, trees, vegetation, natural features that obscure the structure from above. Some facilities are built entirely underground, with entrances hidden in what appear to be natural caves or old mine shafts. Others are disguised as agricultural buildings, complete with actual farms on top to justify any activity. The best bunker is the one nobody knows exists, and if they do find you, well, that's when the defensive systems matter. But we'll get to the security problem later, because it's worse than you think. Part 3. You can't eat gold. Biological autonomy in the wasteland. Here's a question that separates the casual preppers from the serious ones. How long can you survive on stored food? A year? 2 years? Let's say you've got a bunker full of freeze-dried meals and MRES. You've calculated your caloric needs. You've stocked protein bars and vitamin supplements. You're good for 24 months. Then what? Because here's the thing about stored food. It ends. Eventually, you eat the last packet, you scrape the last can, and then you're just a very well-sheltered corpse. The billionaire approach isn't about stockpiling, it's about producing. The goal is biological autonomy, a closed loop where everything you need to survive is generated within your facility, indefinitely. Let's start with plants. Traditional agriculture needs soil, sunlight, and water. All three are potentially compromised in a post-apocalyptic scenario. Soil can be contaminated, sunlight can be blocked by nuclear winter or simply by being underground. Water might be scarce or polluted. The solution is hydroponics and aeroponics. Hydroponics grows plants in nutrient-rich water instead of soil. The roots dangle directly in the solution, absorbing what they need. No dirt required, no soil contamination risk. Aeroponics takes it further. The roots hang in air and get misted with nutrient solution at regular intervals. This uses even less water and allows for even more precise control of plant nutrition. Both systems can be stacked vertically. Instead of a flat field, you have towering racks of growing plants, each level with its own lighting and irrigation. You can produce more food per square foot than any traditional farm. The lighting is LED-based, specifically tuned to the wavelengths that plants need for photosynthesis. Blue light for vegetative growth. Red light for flowering and fruiting. No sunlight required. The LEDs run on your geothermal power or solar arrays or whatever energy system you've built. This is how you grow vegetables underground, indefinitely, with complete control over the environment. But vegetables aren't enough. You need protein. Traditional livestock is a problem. Cows need space, pigs need space, chickens need space. They all produce waste. They all consume resources at a rate that's hard to sustain in a sealed environment. The billionaire solution comes in two forms: insects and bioreactors. Insects, specifically species like black soldier fly larvae and mealworms, are incredibly efficient protein converters. They can eat organic waste, including food scraps and even human waste, and convert it into high-protein biomass. They don't need much space. They don't produce greenhouse gases. They're essentially biological recycling machines. You might not want to eat a handful of mealworms directly, but grind them up, process them, and you've got protein flour that can be added to bread, pasta, or any other staple. Bioreactors take it even further. These are essentially incubators for growing meat without the animal. You take cells, muscle cells, fat cells, and you grow them in a nutrient bath. No animal suffering, no grazing land, no feed conversion inefficiency. The technology is still young for commercial scale, but the wealthy have access to prototypes that most of us won't see for decades. Lab-grown meat produced in your bunker, indistinguishable from the real thing. This is how you maintain dietary quality indefinitely. This is how you don't end up surviving on protein bars and desperation. Now let's talk medicine. A standard prepper has a first aid kit, some bandages, maybe some antibiotics if they thought ahead. It's enough to handle a cut, a broken bone, maybe an infection if you're lucky. A billionaire bunker has a medical wing. We're talking diagnostic equipment, X-ray machines, ultrasound, blood analyzers. We're talking surgical capability, operating tables, anesthesia systems, surgical robotics. The Da Vinci surgical system, for instance, is a robotic platform that allows a single surgeon to perform minimally invasive procedures with superhuman precision. It was designed for hospitals, but there's nothing stopping someone from installing one in a private facility. With the right training, a small medical team can perform procedures that would normally require an entire hospital staff. Blood storage is another consideration. Major trauma usually requires transfusions. You need blood banks. You need matching. You need refrigeration that works indefinitely. Some facilities go further. They include the actual medical professionals in their survival plan. The personal surgeon isn't just on call, they're on the list. They and their family get bunker access in exchange for exclusive medical service. It's feudalism with better technology. The Lord protects the specialist serves the Lord. And then there's water, not just water storage, not just water filtration. Complete water recycling. NASA developed this for the International Space Station. Astronauts can't afford to waste water. Resupply is expensive and infrequent, so they developed systems that recycle everything. Humidity from breath, sweat, urine, even fecal matter has water content that can be extracted. The result is a closed loop where virtually 100% of water is recovered and purified to drinking quality. It sounds disgusting until you realize that all water on Earth has been recycled through countless organisms over billions of years. There's no new water. There's just water that's been cleaned really well. With these systems, a bunker becomes independent of external water sources. You don't need rivers or wells or rainfall. You just need to capture what you already have. Combine this with your hydroponic farms, your insect protein, your bioreactors, and your medical facility, and you have something that can theoretically function forever. A sealed ecosystem, a generation ship that doesn't go anywhere. That's the goal. That's what your annual income couldn't buy in 1,000 years. But even the best systems are useless if you can't get to them in time. And that's where things get complicated. Part 4, the golden hour, getting out before the door closes. You've got the bunker. It's stocked. It's sealed. It's camouflaged and hardened and ready. It's also in New Zealand. And you're in Manhattan. You've got maybe 6 to 12 hours from the moment everything goes sideways to the moment the bunker doors close forever. After that, the facility locks down. No exceptions. Anyone outside is just another problem to be defended against. This is the golden hour problem, and it's the weakest link in the entire billionaire survival chain, because no matter how much money you have, you still have to travel. The first obstacle is ground transportation. When crisis hits, roads become parking lots. Everyone has the same idea: leave. The result is gridlock that makes rush hour look like a pleasant Sunday drive. Your car is now a very expensive metal box full of supplies that you can't move. Emergency services will try to maintain order initially, but order is fragile. Traffic control breaks down. Accidents pile up. Some people abandon their vehicles. Others become aggressive. The road itself becomes a danger zone. The wealthy solution is to avoid roads entirely. VTOL aircraft, vertical takeoff and landing, bypass the gridlock problem completely. You take off from your rooftop, your private helipad, your yacht deck. You're in the air while everyone else is stuck at the intersection. Helicopters have been the traditional choice, but they have range limitations. A typical helicopter might get you 300 to 500 miles before refueling. That's nowhere near enough to cross an ocean. Private jets extend that range, but they need runways. Airports will be chaotic or closed. Runway access becomes a choke point. The newer generation of VTOL aircraft, electric or hybrid designs, promise vertical takeoff with extended range, but the technology is still emerging. The billionaires are investing heavily, hoping to solve the physics before they need to use it. But even the best aircraft has finite range. You cannot fly from New York to New Zealand without stopping. Not in any aircraft that exists today. You need fuel, and that's where pre-positioned caches come in. Imagine a chain of private airstrips, each stocked with fuel and supplies at strategic points across the Pacific. Each one is maintained, secured, and ready. You land, refuel, take off again. Island hopping your way to safety. These aren't public airports. They're private facilities, often on purchased land or islands, sometimes disguised as research stations or agricultural outposts. They exist for one purpose: to be the stepping stones in an escape route that spans half the planet. Some billionaires have taken a different approach entirely. They skip the bunker. Instead, they invest in what I call shadow yachts. These are not luxury yachts in the traditional sense. They're designed for extended autonomous operation. They can stay at sea for months without docking. They produce their own fresh water through desalination. They generate power through solar, wind, or in some cases, small nuclear reactors. The ocean becomes a moat. You don't have to defend a fixed position because you don't have a fixed position. You're a moving target, self-sufficient, visible only when you choose to be. Some of these vessels are built to look old and unremarkable from the outside while hiding military-grade capabilities within. The rust bucket appearance is deliberate. It says nothing worth taking here to anyone who might consider piracy. Others are more obvious in their purpose. Bristling with defensive systems and clearly broadcasting that approach is a bad idea. The common thread is autonomy, the ability to survive without any external support, indefinitely, using the vastness of the ocean as both barrier and resource. But whether you choose a bunker or a yacht, whether you take a helicopter or a private jet, one problem remains constant: people. Specifically, the people you bring with you. Part 5. The knife at the king's throat. The loyalty paradox. This is the part where the billionaire fantasy starts to crack. Because here's the thing, you can't run a bunker alone. You need people. You need engineers to maintain the systems. You need medical staff for emergencies. You need security for defense. You need a chef, a technician, a logistics manager. You need a population. And every person you bring is a variable you can't fully control. Tech author Douglas Rushkoff tells a famous story about being invited to speak to a group of ultra-wealthy investors at a desert resort. They paid his speaking fee just to get him alone, then ignored his prepared remarks entirely. They had only one question for him: how do I maintain authority over my security force after the event? The event. Capital E. That's how they referred to whatever collapse they were expecting. And their concern wasn't the collapse itself. Their concern was what happens afterward, when money stops meaning anything. Right now, a security guard works for you because you pay them. They follow orders because those orders come with a paycheck, benefits, job security. The system reinforces your authority. But in a post-collapse scenario, there is no system. There is no economy. There are no police to call if your employees decide to mutiny. There is only the immediate reality of who has the guns and who controls the food. A security chief with military training, surrounded by armed guards who answer to him, controlling access to the bunker perimeter. What exactly is stopping him from deciding that he'd rather be in charge? Your money? Worthless. Your legal contracts? Meaningless. Your social status? Nobody cares about your LinkedIn profile when the power grid is dead. The billionaires in that room understood this problem with perfect clarity. Their solutions, however, were deeply dystopian. One idea: biometric locks. Put critical resources, food storage, water systems, power controls behind locks that only open with the patron's biometrics. Retina scan, fingerprint, DNA. The guard can have all the guns in the world, but if the food locker only opens for you, you have leverage. It's a partial solution. It assumes the guard can't find an alternative food source, can't force you to open the locks, can't decide to just let you starve while they figure out the override. It's a delaying tactic, not a permanent answer. Another idea: hostages. Invite the security staff to bring their families into the bunker. Wives, children, parents. Frame it as a generous perk. They get to save their loved ones too. Then, never stated but understood, those families become collateral. If the guard steps out of line, their family's access to food and medical care becomes negotiable. This is medieval logic. Lords kept the families of their knights at court for exactly this reason. It works, historically. It also creates a population that resents you with every fiber of their being and is merely waiting for an opportunity. The darkest solution proposed in that room: shock collars. Literal explosive devices attached to the necks of security personnel, detonatable by remote control held only by the patron. This is not science fiction. The technology exists. The ethics are monstrous, but when you're planning for a scenario where all normal rules have collapsed, monstrous becomes just another strategy to consider. Whether any billionaire has actually implemented this is unknown. What's known is that they discussed it seriously. But all of these solutions share a common flaw. They still rely on humans. Humans who might figure out the biometric override. Humans who might decide their family would be safer if the patron had an accident. Humans who might disable the shock collar trigger or turn it back on their would-be master. Humans are unreliable, so the cutting-edge solution is to eliminate humans from the equation entirely. We're now entering the age of automated security. Robot dogs, drone swarms, automated sentry turrets with facial recognition and fire authorization. You've seen the Boston Dynamics videos. The robot dogs that can open doors, climb stairs, navigate rough terrain. Imagine one of those equipped with a mounted weapon and programmed to recognize authorized personnel. Or drone swarms, hundreds of small flying units that can coordinate to patrol a perimeter, identify intruders, and respond with non-lethal or lethal force as programmed. Or turrets, fixed positions with targeting systems that don't sleep, don't get bored, don't form unions, and don't have families to protect. The AI makes the decisions, the machines carry them out. No human loyalty required. This sounds clean until you think about failure modes. What if the AI malfunctions? What if it misidentifies a friendly? What if the power fails and the failsafe defaults to shoot everything? Automation solves the loyalty problem by replacing one set of risks with another. You trade human unpredictability for mechanical unpredictability. You trade mutiny for malfunction. Maybe that's acceptable. Maybe a robot that might glitch is better than a human who might decide they deserve to be in charge. But it's cold comfort when you realize that the billionaire survival fantasy essentially requires living in a prison of your own construction, surrounded by either hostile servants or soulless machines, waiting for the world to become habitable again. That's the security paradox. You can build walls against the outside world, but you can't build walls against the people inside them with you, and you can't survive alone. Part 6. Wizards of the Wasteland. Controlling the future through knowledge. Let's assume for a moment that a billionaire solves all of these problems. They pick the right location. They build the impenetrable fortress. They stock it with self-sustaining food production and medical facilities. They escape in time. They manage the loyalty problem through some combination of biometrics, automation, and maybe a few solutions too dark to discuss openly. Now they're alive. The collapse happened. The outside world is chaos. Now what? See, survival isn't the end game for these people. Survival is the transition phase. The real goal is what comes after. The rebuilding, the new society. And in that new society, they don't intend to be just another citizen. They intend to be on top. Again, the strategy is simple. Control what the new world needs most. In any post-collapse scenario, knowledge becomes the scarcest resource. The people who know how to rebuild generators, purify water at scale, manufacture medicine, restore communication networks, those people become the new priesthood. But knowledge is fragile. It lives in servers that need power, in books that can burn, in experts who can die. So the billionaires are creating knowledge arcs. These are archives of critical human knowledge, engineering schematics, medical procedures, agricultural techniques, manufacturing processes, stored on mediums that can survive centuries without maintenance. Normal digital storage degrades, hard drives fail, SSDs lose charge. Even printed books rot eventually. The alternatives are exotic but real. Information etched into crystal quartz using femtosecond laser pulses. This can last millions of years without degradation. Metal plates engraved with microscopic text, readable with magnification, resistant to fire and water and time. Imagine the strategic value of being the only person in 1,000 miles who has the schematics to rebuild an electrical grid, or the chemical formulas for antibiotics, or the engineering plans for water purification systems. You don't just know things, you become the oracle, the wizard, the essential figure that any emerging community needs if they want to progress beyond subsistence survival. He who controls the knowledge controls the direction of the new civilization. And it goes further than technical knowledge. Seed vaults. You've heard of the Svalbard Global Seed Vault in Norway, the Doomsday Vault, a repository of seeds from crop plants around the world stored in a frozen mountain as insurance against agricultural catastrophe. The billionaires are building their own versions, private collections of seeds, genetic material, embryos, not just crops but animals, not just for survival but for a competitive advantage. If you emerge from your bunker with a library of genetic material that no one else has, you can reintroduce species that have gone extinct. You can offer seeds for crops that no one else can grow. You become the source, the enabler. Some are even freezing their own genetic material, sperm, eggs, DNA samples. The logic being that even if they personally don't survive, their lineage can continue. Their genetic code can be passed to future generations through whatever reproductive technology exists in the rebuilt world. It's a strange kind of immortality, not living forever, but ensuring that your pattern persists, that some version of you continues into the future you'll never see. This is the long game. Survival is just step one. Step two is positioning yourself to be indispensable in whatever society emerges. Step three is ensuring that your bloodline, your values, your influence carry forward through the generations. They don't want to just survive the end of the world. They want to own the next one. The reality check. All right, let's take a breath. We've just walked through the blueprint, the geography, the engineering, the biology, the logistics, the security, the long-term strategy. And here's the truth. It's all fragile. Every piece rests on assumptions that might not hold. The geography assumes fallout follows predictable patterns. The engineering assumes the bunker survives the initial event. The biological systems assume nothing fails in the hydroponics or water recycling. The logistics assume the escape works perfectly. The security assumes humans stay loyal or machines don't malfunction. One broken link. That's all it takes. And beyond all of that, what are you surviving for? To live underground, eating lab-grown meat, surrounded by hostile servants or humming robots, while everyone you've ever known is dead? The bunker isn't a plan for a good life. It's a plan for continued existence. There's a difference. The final punch. So that's it. The Billionaire Bunker Blueprint. They've got the best hardware money can buy, the smartest engineers, the most creative architects, and they still can't solve the fundamental problem. They can't buy trust. They can't engineer loyalty. They can't stockpile community. History teaches one lesson over and over. Survival is not a solo activity. The groups that make it through catastrophe aren't the ones with the most resources. They're the ones with the most cooperation. The Billionaire Bunker is a monument to fear. Every wall is also a prison. Every degree of isolation is a step away from what makes survival worth pursuing. Your relationship with your neighbor might be worth more than their $100 million hole in the ground. The wasteland doesn't care about portfolios. It only knows who can work together and who dies alone. Choose wisely.